Everybody, are you experiencing imposter syndrome? Would you like some tips and some tricks to help you overcome your imposter syndrome? Well, if so, you are in the right place. My name's Jane Phillips. I run Jane Phillips Coaching. I'm a business coach, but I specialize in imposter syndrome. I help individuals and business owners so that they can overcome their imposter syndrome, so they can be brave, so they can have the confidence to really grab those fantastic opportunities that we often let pass by. And so ultimately, we can achieve more things, we can earn more money, we can be more successful. So, does that sound interesting? Well, thank you for joining me today. I'm so pleased that you're joining me here. So, a little bit of housekeeping first. I'm going to be talking for between 20 and 30 minutes. We'll see how we get on. If you have any questions for me, any comments, please pop them in the comments box and I will answer those. If you're watching it on the replay, still add some comments into the comments box because I will still go back and view those and answer those questions. I'll pick up on those questions. So yeah, please do. If you're watching me live, please put #live in the comments and where you are at the moment, where you're listening from. And if you're watching me on the replay, please put #replay on there. It would be really super useful for me. So yeah, so thank you everyone for joining me. So let's talk about imposter syndrome. Do you feel like an imposter? Do you feel like you shouldn't be doing the things that you're doing? Do you think that the people that you work with or your peers are better than you? They're cleverer, they produce better work, and they are more successful than you. If you feel like that, you could be experiencing imposter syndrome because that's how it makes us feel. And let me tell you this. Imposter syndrome is not real. And I believe that each person listening to me today has the skills, has the personality, has what it takes within them to be the success that they want to be. We can all achieve that if we really want to do that. If we're prepared to really have the self-belief and put the tools into action that we need to make sure that's solid, secure, gives us the confidence to reach out and build our business, build our success. And that's why I talk about imposter syndrome, because it really does have such a big part, plays such a big part in that. Now, it doesn't mean that, if you just believe in yourself, you're going to be successful. Success doesn't come like that. We may all have what it takes to be successful. We may have to unpeel the layers of our personality so that we understand ourselves and understand our positive traits and our strengths, so that we can focus on our weaknesses or get help and support to do some of the things that we don't do so well. We all can do that, but it's not easy. Just by thinking about success doesn't mean that it will happen. It takes work. It takes hard work. Every successful business person, everybody who's achieved something significant in their life knows it takes hard work, determination, tenacity, and a real belief in your ability. And imposter syndrome sometimes makes us falter in our self-belief. It can stop us thinking that we can achieve that goal. It's really frustrating the way that it can just step in when you're not expecting it. And it's really frustrating that it can affect people even when they've been really successful in their business. So any CEOs listening to this, you might identify with what I'm talking about. Seems to me the more successful people are and the more roles that they have in high pressured roles, high flying jobs, the more pressure there is, the more likely they are to experience imposter syndrome. The more creative people are, the more likely they are to experience imposter syndrome. And there's another group of people who also often experience imposter syndrome, and that's people who are being funded by their company to do a course, like doing an MBA. The company has so high expectations, but you might be saying to yourself, why have they asked me? Why? I can't do that. I'm not that person. So I've talked a little bit about, what imposter syndrome is, some of the things that it might be saying to you, some of the self-doubt that might be going on in your head. But I'll also just talk about some of the behavior that often goes hand in hand with imposter syndrome. And when you exhibit that behavior, you can ask yourself, actually, is this genuine or is this my imposter syndrome? So there's 4 types of behavior, and the first of those is avoidance. So, it's when somebody asks you to do something, you get the offer maybe to collaborate with other people. Perhaps you get the opportunity to go live, really good opportunities, but you find a way to persuade yourself not to do them. You might tell yourself that you're too busy. You might tell yourself that it's not going to give you that great outcome that you thought it might. Whatever it is, you will find a reason to convince yourself that it's not a good idea to do that. That's avoiding the situation. And sometimes we are so good at doing that we don't even realize that we're actually avoiding a situation. We can really persuade ourselves not to do something. An example that I have is when I was skiing. I'd never skied before. To be honest, I was really worried about skiing. I thought everybody else was going to be great on the slopes and I would be, complete idiot, show myself up, wouldn't be able to learn it. I was worried about looking like a fool. So I used many reasons to persuade myself not to ski, not to go on a skiing holiday. Oh, too busy, wrong time of year, couldn't afford it, didn't have the right clothes, lots of reasons, and I could go on and on and on. And then I finally realized what was actually happening. And so I overcame that and I went skiing. So yeah, really pleased about that. So that's one thing that you might notice yourself doing. Another thing that you might notice yourself doing is procrastinating. Now, many of us procrastinate, and we do procrastinate for different reasons. Sometimes we procrastinate because of our imposter syndrome. It's our imposter syndrome stopping us from doing something, putting something off because we don't feel that we're going to be as good as somebody else at doing something. We don't think we're going to make a good job of that task. And so we procrastinate, we put it off. There are different types of procrastination. Sometimes we procrastinate because we genuinely don't know how to do something. And obviously what we need to do there is pick up the phone, speak to somebody who knows what it is that we need to do. We need to find more information. So we do procrastinate for different reasons. It's not always imposter syndrome. But if the reason why you are procrastinating is because you don't think that you could do that job as well, if you're worried that you're going to look a fool, if you are worried that people will question you and show you up, make it appear as if you don't know anything, if that's your worry, then you are procrastinating because of your imposter syndrome. The third thing that it does is it can make us overwork. So overwork can be as a result of us worrying that we're not going to be good enough. So we feel we have to put more effort in to do an equivalent job to somebody else. It can also be because we've procrastinated and put a job off, we have to overwork in order to complete that job on time, in order to get it done. So if you're overworking, if you're working in the evenings when you don't normally work evenings, if you're working at the weekends, if you're working through your lunchtime, ask yourself, why am I doing this now? What's going on here? Because you might find that is actually your imposter syndrome. So it's a clue when you see that behavior. And the fourth behavior is, they call it perfectionism. I call it over perfectionism, because we all want to do a good piece of work. We always want to do a good job. If we're working with clients, we want a good result. But there is something about over perfecting something, trying to make something better, spending a lot of time doing that and not improving the document. The document, the piece of work, you can tweak around, you can play about with it. You can do that on Canva, for instance. If any of you use Canva or try to create PDFs and things like that, you can fiddle around with it. And actually, it's no better than it was. And you can waste a lot of time over perfecting something and not adding any value to it. So if you find that you are spending more time on something that you thought you might, or you're tweaking it here and there, ask yourself, are you really adding value to it? Because that is also one of the behavioral traits that we show when we have imposter syndrome. And that's because we're worried that if it's not perfect, it's not going to be good enough. But the reality is that we are all human. We're all human. And so that means that we make mistakes. We aren't perfect. We do get things wrong. We are so cruel to ourselves. We are so hard. We are harder on ourselves than we are on our family, on our friends, on our colleagues. We often expect much, much higher standards of ourselves than we expect of other people. So actually, we are the ones setting ourselves up to fail. We are the ones setting ourselves up to disappoint ourselves. And we are the ones setting ourselves up to disbelieve other people when they say to you, that was a really good piece of work. And you tell yourself, no, it wasn't. Or you tell yourself, no, it was easy. I'm sure, we've all been there. We've all been in that situation. I had a fairly sort of recent example of my own imposter syndrome was about using IT. We know, social media and the IT developments, they happen so fast now. Every few weeks there'll be something new, there'll be a different way of doing things, and it can be really, really hard to keep up, can't it? And I can do these things. I actually had a background in IT many, many years ago, so I'm not really scared of it. But just keeping up with the pace of change and using a phone rather than a computer to do things, so sometimes it really stretches my skill set. And I was trying to do my first reel on Instagram, and I tried and I failed, and I tried and I failed, and I just could not get it to work. Completely fed up, completely faffed about it. And I just thought, what am I doing? Why am I doing this? I'm absolutely hopeless at this. Everyone else is much better than me. Look at all those amazing reels, and I'm just making a mess of this. So I had a real case of imposter syndrome. And then I thought to myself, yeah, but Jane, you can do this. You think about all the IT things that you've achieved, all the tech stuff that you've learned, all the social media that you've got used to. What you're missing, Jane, I said to myself, is the knowledge, is the know-how. So I went on YouTube, I spoke to friends, I worked out how to do the things that I was just trying to do without any support, any training, any knowledge. And that's another trait or another type, if you like, of imposter syndrome. Sometimes people with imposter syndrome think that they should be a natural genius. And the natural genius is the person who thinks that they should be able to do something perfectly first time, even though they've never done it before, even though they've had no training, even though they've read no information about it. They just think that somehow, magically, they're going to be able to just sit and do this thing. So I thought that I could just, click on the Reels button and I would just know what to do. It would just come to me. I would know which buttons to press. I'd know how to add the music. I'd know how to add the captions. That I'd just be able to work it out, and it'd be fine. No, absolutely not. Absolutely not. So in that situation, I expected myself to be a natural genius. Does that sound familiar to you? Do you ever think that you should be able to do something with no skill, have never done it before, no real knowledge, or not enough skill and knowledge to really help you or enable you to do that? Do you do that? Does that sound like you? If it does, you could be experiencing the natural genius type of imposter syndrome. There are several more which I'm going to talk about in different in my different lives, because what I want to do now is I just want to turn to some questions that I've had and answer those. So I'm just having a look here. So Bethan has sent a fantastic question here. Is imposter syndrome ever a good thing? I get asked it frequently, and it's a brilliant question. So thank you, Bethan, for sending that in. Is imposter syndrome ever a good thing? Well, it really depends on what you do about it, what you do about that imposter syndrome. There are some people that say, well, my imposter syndrome is just making sure that I do a good job. My imposter syndrome is, just giving me the adrenaline that I need to, do a good presentation. My imposter syndrome keeps me in check and makes sure I get jobs done. Well, if you feel nervous about doing a presentation, if you worry that you're not good enough, but you still manage to overcome those things and go on and do a good presentation and go on and do a good task and believe that you are good enough, then your imposter syndrome may well be giving you some help. It may well be assisting you. But for a lot of people, imposter syndrome is a bad thing because it actually stops them in their tracks. It stops them in their tracks. And that is the worst thing about imposter syndrome. And the saddest thing about imposter syndrome is it stops us from doing things that we could do, that we should be able to do, that we could actually do really well. It stops us believing in ourselves. So, there's the imposter syndrome cycle where, people feel uncomfortable because they've been asked to do something that makes them feel, that they're not good enough, that somebody else should be doing that job. Something perhaps that they're doing for the first time that they don't feel comfortable about. So you're no longer in your comfort zone. Basically, you've gone into the stretch zone and you're feeling, really, really uncomfortable. But it's what happens next. It's what happens next that makes the difference about whether imposter syndrome can be good or bad, because it's how you react to it. So if you just allow imposter syndrome to overwhelm you and stop you in your tracks, that's bad. But what you can do instead is you can actually accept and acknowledge that imposter syndrome is there. You can also accept that everybody else feels the same way at times. Everybody else worries that someone else can do a job better. Everybody worries sometimes that they're not good enough. Everybody at some time or other has that anxiety. So, it's really good to know that you're not alone. You're in really good company. This is why so many people experience imposter syndrome. So even the person that you aspire to, they will experience imposter syndrome too. And it's what comes next. So, firstly, know that you're not alone. Accept that you're worried about imposter syndrome, but understand that your imposter syndrome is trying to keep you safe. It's trying to prevent you from being hurt. It's part of the very, very old part of our brain that wants to keep us safe. It recognizes the stress that we feel when we're doing something for the first time, or something that we don't feel so comfortable doing. It picks up on that stress, and our imposter syndrome thinks, that actually that stress is going to be really dangerous for us. So it will try to stop us from doing it. It will try to stop us from doing that activity, because there's loads of stress going on. It must be something that's really, really dangerous for us. But the truth is that that's not the case. The truth is that stressful situations don't necessarily cause us danger anymore. They're there. This is modern life. We feel stressed a lot of the time, but that doesn't mean that those stressful situations are going to hurt us, are going to kill us. So when I say imposter syndrome isn't real, it's because it is getting confused. It's picking up on signals and it's misinterpreting it. So our imposter syndrome will tell us anything it can think of, anything at all, to stop you from putting yourself in that stressful situation. So it will say anything. It will say, you're not good enough, you're rubbish, everyone else can do that better, people will laugh at you. It will say all of those things to try and stop you from doing that. But that's just a feeling. It's not a fact. And if you remember, when you feel like that, the times that you overcame imposter syndrome, the times when you did a task really well that you'd been worried about, the times in the past when you've overcome challenges, you can realize that you do have the resources within you to go on and to do a good job of what it is that you've been asked to do that's making you feel uncomfortable. So when you can overcome your imposter syndrome, then it's a good thing, because it's trying to keep us safe. But actually, only if you can overcome it and stop it from preventing you from doing really good things, being really successful. So that's my question from Bethan. I hope that was really useful. Yeah. So if I had to give the top tips, I suppose, really from that, I would say that first of all, remember that, everyone feels that way at some point. Everybody feels nervous. Everyone feels someone can do something better, and it's what you do about it that actually counts. And it doesn't mean that just because you think other people can do a job better, it doesn't mean, that you're going to fail at that task. And it also doesn't mean that other people think that somebody else could do it better. The chances are you've been asked to do a task is because people believe you can do it, that you're the one to go to, you're the one to ask, you're the one to do this task. And then I think the last thing that I would say is that, just because you still have things to learn, just because you don't know everything, does not make you an imposter. We're all on a journey. We're all on a journey, and everybody has more to learn. Even the most knowledgeable professor still has more things to learn. We're on that journey. So remember that you're there on that journey, and don't be afraid to acknowledge that, hey, I don't know everything. Just imagine how powerful it is when somebody's given a presentation and they're asked a question and they say, I don't know the answer to that, but I can find that answer out for you. That's really powerful, isn't it? That's somebody who's really self-assured and really feels confident in their ability to get help and to find the answers. We're not encyclopedias. They're not all up in our head. So yeah, I think those would be my tips from today to help you going forward and overcoming your imposter syndrome. So I just want to let you know that next week I've got the fantastic Natalie Truesdale with me. Natalie is a body image coach and she's absolutely fantastic at what she does. So she's going to be with me next week and we're going to be chatting about her business and about, imposter syndrome. And it's going to be a really great session. So I hope you can join me then. If you'd like to see some of the replays of the interviews that I've done, last week I was talking to the amazing Rachel Howarth, and a couple of weeks before that, the fantastic Helen Lacey. They are both fantastic people to interview, incredibly successful, and they're really good sessions to watch. So yeah, go and watch those on replay. Really recommend it. The final thing that I want to do is just give you a bit of a heads up that in a few weeks' time, Jane Phillips Coaching will be celebrating its second birthday. Yes, as Jane Phillips Coaching, the organisation itself will have been going for 2 years. Don't know where the time's gone. But as part of that, there's going to be some offers. There's going to be a special masterclass, and there's going to be some sort of freebies as well. So, keep your eyes peeled for more information about those. I'll be talking about them on my social media and in my LinkedIn Lives a little bit more over the next couple of weeks. So I hope you've enjoyed today. I really do. I hope it's been helpful. And I'm looking forward to you joining me again next week. Take care, everyone. Bye.